Well, connecting the dots, my understanding is that this is a long chain, a very long chain that begins from the individual, from the household, all the way to the government. And there are many layers in between, and there are many groups of actors there. And then when you add to that long chain of groups of actors in the process, you have the regional and international organizations. So each of these units represent a dot, and the dot requires some kind of a harmonious relationship in addressing some of the critical issues that affect society in general and that affect the agricultural sector. Now, connecting the dots is easy to say. Actually connecting them will take a longer period of time, a much longer period of time. And it requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of patience by the various actors in the process.
Where's our major carbohydrate source? Now, I come from a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society where there are certain sources of proteins that aren't approved for religious grounds. So let's say pork. But no religion is against protein. There's no religion that says that you can't have carbohydrate. There's no religion that says you're not supposed to consume all vegetables or certain vegetables. So I think that's where we need to work on how we get a proper mix of dietarily significant foods.
The thing is, the dots, connecting the dots to pick up the thing. For me, we should connect the dots and see the dots as the island of the Caribbean, connecting them in all the way, exchange good and bad experiences. I guess Haiti has a lot that we can offer, or most of them is bad experience because the way we have been mismanaging our environment, but also there is a lot of effort being done in Haiti that trying to reverse this thing. And also for you, for Haitian, also they can learn from you how we can preserve that. Because if we are looking how Dominica is preserved as a small island, I guess Haitian also can see, okay, they have been preserving their island. They can, if they can do it, we as black people, we can do it too. We don't have to look to European or to other rich country, but those folks in the Caribbean, our brothers, they have been well managed their environment. They have lessons they can share with us. So I guess this is what we can have and share, bring whatever you want.
I think with the recent programs that have been implemented, I think we will begin to connect the dots. As the research is done, we will come to realize that we grow nutritious foods. We've been misled in the past by those people who brought in cheap imports, and they've led us to believe that, you know, coconut oil was bad and this was bad. But those myths are being debunked. And even in the first world, there's a huge drive towards consuming fresh fruits. You know, that's the drive now. Okay, so it's going full circle, and I think we're definitely going to connect the dots, because we will be in a position not only to produce enough for ourselves, but we will be in a position to produce enough for export. Roots and tubers is a very good example.
The connection of the dots. You see, what we have is an artificial separation of what exists. We have rural on one hand, we have urban, and we have all these artificial constructs, and we must recognize that these are artificial constructs. Because if I ask you from St. Vincent, where is rural and where is urban in a small island like St. Vincent? Where does that line begin and stop? And these are things that we must define for ourselves as developing nations. All right? Do we have one policy for the country, recognizing the needs of each individual areas? Do we erase that artificial construct? And if we do not erase that artificial construct, because we recognize that there are different characteristics to each. Why not design policies based on these unique characteristics of each, rather than trying to make one into the other and wasting resources in the process, and it's something we would never be able to achieve. So I dare to say that that separation that we're seeing is an artificial construct. And the political will in the first hand to do away with that artificial construct is what we should be aiming for. And recognizing that each part of our society has its own function, has its own contribution to make. And there is a saying that to whom much is given, much must be returned. I think in our context, that is more than apt, especially for the services that we have gotten from our rural areas over the past. You do not see the problem, or most times you do not see the problems with access roads, transportation, water that in the urban areas are just in the rural areas. Yet, the money which is generated from the rural areas is what is used to maintain these roads. Why can't we have proper access roads for farmers? So that before, farmer could have a beautiful crop, but because of the condition of the roads, his crop is damaged before it gets to market. Is that fair in our society?
The media needs to be able to go out, even from at the Food and Nutrition Council level, at the nutrition units, health education, health promotion units, and to get some of the information and make it a priority to say, okay, if possible, that we could have slots on the radio, on the television, instead of just once a week, but then on a daily basis, whether it's just a simple line, just to remind people what it is that they can eat. One of the things that Dominicans have really explored is doing and coming up with different things that they can do with our local provisions. We've seen a number of different dishes and things and produce coming out of just green bananas. We've seen a number of things coming out from breadfruit and coming out from yams and dashi in Dominica. And again, we have a number of small business units that are actually undertaking things like, instead of bringing in like potato chips from the US or from England or wherever else it may be coming from, we have local persons in Dominica producing things like breadfruit chips and plantain chips and green banana chips and even dashing chips. And those things are just so tasty. They are very well packaged.
The climate is changing. We are suffering from the effects of climate change. And we have to, for us, there is no mitigation that we should concentrate on. The Caribbean countries have to concentrate on adaptation and to look for adaptation strategies and place them within our planning. If we're gonna have a serious problem with water, not that we don't have water, but the techniques for harvesting the water, the techniques for storing the water, the techniques for dealing with too much water when there is a floods, we have to pay serious attention to. You saw what happened in St. Lucia during Thomas. There was just a lot of water. It was a Category 1 storm, but it came and it squatted over the island and devastated the island, almost like a Category 5 hurricane. That's what we are used to in a Category 5. You saw what happened here in Dominica 2 weeks ago, just before this week started. Almost an ecological disaster when the dam collapsed. And then the amount of flooding. The hotel where you're staying, look at the roads going there. When I was here a month ago, it was not like that. There was a little stream. And now, so too much water. What are the plans that we are making for flood mitigation, for water harvesting, and also for crop adaptation to feed our people?
I see the dot as government grants, government markets, and individuals coming up with creative ideas to really push and drive agriculture. And connecting those dots for me is like trying to push social entrepreneurship, which helps individuals basically to think creatively, using that small resource that they may have and turn it into something that is lucrative. Like for example, you take a piece of dough, right? And you beat that dough and you get bread. You take that same piece of dough and you put it in a plate or a pie dish and you cover it and you get pie. So basically, it's more of coming up with creative ways of using our natural resources that we have and government grants to help with those creative ideas, to help to improve those creative ideas, and connecting the dots to the market where these produce now that are being, you know, produced by individuals who come up with it creatively, and you know, buyers and sellers, and that chain basically is what you want. Once you know you have a market for your creativity, that's what you need to connect the dots.
To be quite frank with you, I think that the governments of the region need to sit down. One policy, development policy. Development, this is how we're going to develop, of which the things, how the things fall in place. You can't develop health without agriculture. But you have ministries of health and agriculture in the same building and they don't talk to each other. You have ministries of environment and agriculture in the same building and they don't talk to each other. But we need the forest, and environment is responsible for the forest reserve where we have the headwaters, but they don't talk to agriculture. So unless we connect the dots in that way, we will always have a problem. And that can only come if there is a single development plan of which all these pieces are in place.
Something significant happened just recently. Our Minister of Education placed a lot of emphasis and even met with the parents and the principals of the school, and he has insisted that we put more emphasis on our local provisions and vegetables. And to back up this point, what has happened for us is that we have been given a large budget this year to ensure that this takes place. So our budget has actually increased by about 4 times much money than it would normally have for us to be able to accommodate purchasing of more local provisions. Because of course we know the locally produced crops are a little more expensive, of course, than the rice that we would be importing or the flour that we're importing. But then now that we have that money, definitely we are making the changes to the menu to accommodate all of our local ground provisions and fruits and vegetables.
My experience is that those organizations, if they have willing participants, they will work with them. Okay, IECA has done a lot of work for us. In fact, IECA has done they did our record keeping, and they're going to be involved in cost of production studies and things like that, and they're going to audit farms, and they're going to try and bring us up to, you know, HACCP standards.
And I think one of the strongest dots that came out was removing the discussion from the hotel and conference room setting to the field and to the real on-the-ground setting. So, you know, we came out of the hotel room, or we came out of the conference area, and we went to the farmers' fields, and then people began to link what they read in the policy, or what they read in the press, or what they hear the politicians say with what the farmers are experiencing on the field. So the dots in terms of, yes, there's a policy, but it has to come to life on the ground. That was a major dot, I think, we got connected.